It all started one week when we decided to tackle the southern, much less frequented route of Mt Maroon. In the words of Tim, my co-adventurer, Andrew and I are doing a cruisy trip to Maroon. Well, it may have started that way, but certainly changed once we hit the more interesting stuff. We survived the climb, but in this video, we now tackle a perilous and slippery descent.
Alright, better get the navigation thing out, eh?
So where are we going?
Not sure. No, we just got to go down here into this thing, and that's our gorge there.
Rightio.
Down straight through there.
Okie dokie.
Down here, basically drop in the gully and then just follow it down.
Yep. Sweet, let's do it.
So after a feed and a moment to take in the cool air, I was recharged and feeling quite optimistic about our return trip. From what I'd heard about this way down, it was lightly trafficked, which meant there would still be a bit of a trail to follow, and with plenty of trees, there'd be plenty to hang on to if things got slippery.
We are now off the tourist track.
We started the descent on the regular tourist track, but then after a couple of minutes we diverted to the route leading down the back of the mountain. Thankfully, although the rain was coming down, the rocks here were rough and grippy, so that made for a rather easy passage. But still, one would want to take care coming down these sections. I still certainly had trust issues regarding my boots on this wet terrain. Now we are in the gorge. Upon seeing the faint trail, I was really starting to feel good about this part of the trip, as it looked super cruisy. The air was still nice and cold, and now we had some rain on us as well, so I was able to avoid overheating again. This of course translates to feeling stronger and being able to go faster, which was a win for all of us since I was no longer travelling at the speed of a drunk slug.
The wind was so strong, the boat, the ship, was starting to tilt, you know. It was just incredible. Another slip, another shot.
I previously discussed the idea of watching the video of this hike with a bottle of single malt whiskey and taking a shot every time I slipped over. I decided against this idea because one requires their liver to be in good working condition to achieve an acceptable quality of life.
Back in the southeast days, Tim, the downhill used to break so many people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you watch the set crash.
Yeah, these rocks are all about an eighth of the size of the other. I know.
Oh, look at this tree, look up.
Yeah.
And another slip.
Leaving you behind.
Low and slow. Now I'm down. I shouldn't have followed you.
And by now the constant stepping down off rocks with my overweight bag and repeated slips over were starting to take their toll, and I was starting to really feel it in my knees. So that speed I was able to enjoy at the beginning of the gorge part had now dropped down a few gears, and I was again starting to fall behind. By now I'd completely given up on the idea of trying to keep my boots dry in any way. Wasn't going to happen. Although I did have to accept that I would be doing the rest of the trip with very soggy socks. Sadly, my action roll under the log didn't look quite as cool as I thought it would. Quite lame.
Oh, man. Whoops.
Now we started the next phase of our adventure, the rocky slabs. In the dry, this would have been an awesome place, and you probably would have been able to move at a real cracking pace. But in the wet, with poor grip, it was a nightmare, especially on the parts where it was sloping. You lose it here, you're in a world of hurt. All that stuff I said about there being plenty to hang on to on the way down, well, that's all disappeared. And all I have now to give me a fraction of stability on the wet rocks were my trusty trekking poles. But even using them, the trip up the mountain was a blistering pace compared to my current pace of a crippled sloth with a walking frame.
So I'm using trekking poles here because this black slime on this rock is just like ice. And I've already fallen a few times. My mates have fallen a few times and I don't want to stack it. I don't want to break something, hurt me back, you know, anything like that, because I've done that before. Not fun. So don't do this trail if it's in the wet, otherwise you're going to die. Don't do it in the heat because you're going to die. So a high level of dorkiness with the trekking poles, but they can save you a lot of hurt. Man, this is slippery. Oh, that looks nice up ahead. How awesome does that look?
For a brief moment, I was able to shift my focus from falling over to taking in the amazing view I could see ahead. This video really didn't do it justice at all. It was absolutely incredible to see it firsthand. The concerns I'd previously had about slipping evaporated into nothing once I saw what was coming next over this edge. Here's where we use a product called tubular webbing, also known as tube tape, or we just call it tape. It's generally used for setting anchors and slings for abseiling off cliffs. It doesn't really weigh that much and it can come in very handy. We usually take about 30 meters or so with us, just in case we encounter any sketchy sections when we're exploring some of the more interesting terrain. And in a short amount of time, the tape proved its worth 3 times in a row. If I didn't have that to hang on to, I definitely would have gone for a not so fun trip down the rocks.
No way I would have made it down without this tape.
No.
Thing just practically runs down it.
So again,
Couple of tyre tube, you know.
Put my hand on that stuff, it's going to make it
good stuff.
And back to granny speed.
Man.
Another painfully slow section, so let's just watch it from this angle. Having left the slabs of death, the trail levelled out to nice flat ground. After departing a section called Paddy's Flats, we walked along a little bit further until we got to this place here. This here is Paddy's Falls. I would have liked to have gotten a bit closer to the edge for some better shots, but with today's track record of slipping and falling repeatedly and unexpectedly, I decided firmly that I would forego the views this time. However, I do have another video coming up shortly which shows what Paddy's Falls looks like in nice weather, and it's not overly hard to get to. Once you leave Paddy's Falls, you connect up with the fire trail for a nice, uneventful, easy, non-slipping walk down to the bottom.
This water is so good. Whoops, nearly fell in again. Oh man, my legs, that just feels so good. Yeah. This doesn't come anywhere near the car. No, it's in my bag. I normally drink it at the summit, but
normally you would follow this trail down Drynan's Hut Road and just leg it out. But Tim felt we hadn't experienced enough adventure yet and found another way to squeeze a bit more in. The water here was just deep enough to make standing rather difficult and have the current knock me off my feet, causing my shins and knees to once again become one with the rocks that were mere centimetres underwater. But yet it was still shallow enough that I couldn't take advantage of the current to take me along without pulverising what remained of my already very aching and bruised body.
you see how those two guys are like really far ahead? It's because I'm carrying all their stuff in my dry bag.
Thankfully though, the water does get a bit deeper, allowing you to take the weight off your legs for a bit, which was an absolute blessing by now.
Oh yeah.
Pretty relaxing here.
And another slip. Sadly, this is where my last GoPro battery decided to expire. But we were, at this point, only about 20 minutes or so from the car. So that concludes our epic saga up the path less travelled on the back of Mt Maroon. We ended up chilling in the creek near the car for a bit until I regained the ability to move my legs again. Yeah, I might have been a bit dramatic on this one, but this was definitely not a hike for the unprepared. I do this sort of thing a fair bit and I still copped it. There was slipping, there was falling, there was pain, so much pain. I ran out of water and I had to refill from the creek, and my arm hurt for the next month from the repeated falling over.
Oh, far
It
out.
was humid and I was getting poked by things.
Oh, man.
And honestly, by the end I was over it.
Oh, it just keeps going.
The enjoyment factor did diminish as I was stressing out about slipping on the wet rocks. But, despite all that, I would still do it again. Although the wet weather definitely added another layer of adventure to the day, I certainly wouldn't recommend doing it in the wet unless you're fully prepared for the difficulties associated with the wet, slippery rocks.
Man, this is
I'll
slippery.
definitely be back on this trail again in the dry, as there's still plenty of this side of the mountain to explore.